The large meeting room on Space Station Harmony was very quiet. The air felt heavy and thick. Around the big round table sat many different aliens from across the galaxy. There were the Zephyrians with their green and blue scales that changed colors when they felt strong emotions. The Vorthan looked like walking crystals that sparkled under the bright lights. The Mindari were strange beings that looked like floating clouds of light and could speak directly into other minds without moving their mouths. All of these alien representatives watched as the human woman at the table slowly closed her small computer tablet. Her name was Sarah Chun, and she was the main speaker for all humans in the galaxy. She was about 40 years old, with short black hair and dark eyes that seemed very tired. She wore a simple blue uniform with a small Earth symbol on the chest. Sarah stood up from her chair. The sound of the chair moving back echoed in the quiet room. The other humans at the table began to pack their papers and put away their computers. There were 5 humans total in the room, and they all moved with the same calm but determined way. The Prime Mediator was a tall alien that looked like a mixture of a bird and a lizard. His name was Veltar, and he had been running these peace meetings for many weeks. When he spoke, a small machine changed his alien words into sounds that everyone could understand. "Ambassador Chun," Veltar said with worry in his voice, "you cannot be serious about leaving these talks. The war between your people and the hegemony has been going on for 3 years. Many beings have died. We must find peace." Sarah looked at him with eyes that showed no emotion. Her face was like stone. "The Council has made its feelings very clear," she said in a calm voice. "You think humans started this war? You think we are the bad ones? We showed you proof that the hegemony attacked our colonies first. We showed you evidence that they killed innocent people. But you do not believe us." She picked up her last folder from the table. "You have said again and again that our claims about our territory mean nothing. You act like the deaths of our people do not matter. You want us to give up our rights and our homes to make peace." A Zephyrian representative named Kexthal spoke up. His scales turned bright purple, which meant he was angry or upset. "Your people do not understand wisdom. You are young and act with emotion instead of thinking. The hegemony has offered to give you some of what you want. That is reasonable." Sarah turned to look at him. Her voice stayed calm, but there was something cold in it now. "The hegemony has killed every single person on 4 of our worlds. They destroyed entire cities. They took our people as slaves and stole everything valuable from our planets. Your idea of reasonable is to let them keep most of what they stole and pretend the murder of millions of humans never happened." She walked toward the door, and the other humans followed her. "Humanity is leaving these peace talks. We will not come back. We will handle this problem ourselves." The alien representatives began talking loudly to each other as the humans walked out. Their voices mixed together in a sound like angry birds. Veltar called out, "Ambassador Chun, please think about what you are doing. Your people cannot win a war against the hegemony. They have thousands of ships. They control hundreds of worlds. Be reasonable." Sarah stopped at the door but did not turn around. "We tried to be reasonable. We came here hoping for justice. Instead, you offered us surrender disguised as peace." She looked back over her shoulder. "We will remember who stood with us and who did not." The door closed behind the humans with a soft hiss. The alien representatives sat in shocked silence for several minutes. They had expected the humans to get angry and storm out many times during the talks. But they had also expected them to come back the next day ready to negotiate again. This felt different. This felt final. The Mindari representative named Thesara spoke without moving. Her words appeared directly in everyone's minds like thoughts that were not their own. The humans seemed very sure of themselves. Too sure for a people who are about to face impossible odds. Veltar shook his head. "They are emotional beings. They make decisions based on feelings instead of facts. Once they calm down and think about their situation, they will return. No species can stand against the hegemony alone. The numbers make it impossible. A Vorthan representative whose crystal body was mostly blue and white began to speak. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Perhaps we should review what we know about human military strength. How many ships do they have? What weapons do they use? Veltar touched a button on the table, and a large holographic display appeared in the air above them. It showed pictures and numbers about human military forces. According to our intelligence services, the humans have 847 ships total. This includes everything from small patrol boats to their largest battleships. The hegemony has more than 12,000 ships. The display changed to show human weapons. Their most powerful weapons are nuclear bombs. These can destroy cities, but they are very old technology. Most of us stopped using such primitive weapons hundreds of years ago. The hegemony uses antimatter. Weapons that are much more powerful. Kextel's scales shifted to yellow, which meant he was thinking hard. What about their territory? How many worlds do they control? 23 star systems, Veltar answered. The hegemony controls 400 systems with almost 3 trillion beings living in them. The humans have maybe 50 billion people total. Another alien representative spoke up. This one looked like a large insect with 6 arms and compound eyes that sparkled like jewels. The mathematics are simple. Even if every human ship was as good as a hegemony ship, which they are not, the humans would still be outnumbered more than 10 to 1. It would be like one warrior trying to fight an entire army. The aliens around the table nodded in agreement. The facts were clear and could not be argued with. The humans were brave, but being brave did not change reality. They would learn this lesson soon enough. How long do you think it will take? Asked the Vorthan. Veltar thought for a moment. The hegemony will probably give them a few weeks to surrender peacefully. If the humans refuse, the war will be over very quickly. I estimate no more than 6 months before the humans ask to return to these peace talks. When they do, we will need to have terms ready that will save face for them while still giving the hegemony what it wants. We should also prepare statements for the other species in the galaxy, suggested Thesara. When the humans are defeated, many will see it as proof that the old ways of handling conflicts are best. No one will want to risk their own people by fighting wars they cannot win. The meeting continued for another hour as the aliens planned for what they saw as the certain defeat of humanity. They talked about how to help the surviving humans rebuild after the war. They discussed which human worlds might be valuable to other species. They even talked about setting up refugee camps for the humans who would lose their homes. None of them questioned their basic assumption that the humans would lose. The numbers were too clear. The technology gap was too wide. The hegemony was too powerful. It was simple mathematics, and mathematics did not lie. As the aliens finally left the meeting room and returned to their ships, they felt satisfied that they had handled a difficult situation as well as possible. The humans would learn a hard lesson about the realities of galactic politics. But they would survive and hopefully become wiser for the experience. None of them noticed that the humans had left behind a small recording device under the table. None of them wondered why a species facing certain defeat would seem so calm and confident. And none of them thought to ask what else they might not know about their human allies. 3 weeks had passed since the humans walked out of the peace talks. The giant meeting hall of the Galactic Council was buzzing with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the circular rows of seats that went up like steps toward the ceiling. The hall was so big that some aliens looked like tiny dots from the highest seats. Prime Mediator Veltar stood at the center podium. His bird-like head moved back and forth as he looked at all the gathered representatives. The lights in the hall were bright and made his feathers shine with an oily rainbow color. He raised one clawed hand and the talking slowly stopped. We are here today to discuss the human situation, Veltar announced. His voice was amplified so everyone could hear him clearly. As you all know, the humans have withdrawn from peace negotiations with the hegemony. Many of you have expressed concern about what this means for galactic stability. A murmur went through the crowd like wind through tall grass. Some aliens clicked their mandibles together. Others changed colors or made soft whistling sounds. These were all signs of worry and uncertainty. Defense Coordinator Zixhal walked to the front. He was a large alien with 4 muscular arms and skin that looked like gray leather. On his chest he wore many medals and symbols of rank. Behind him floated a holographic display that showed pictures and numbers. "Fellow representatives," Zixhal said in a deep voice that seemed to come from somewhere in his chest, "I want to put your fears to rest. The human withdrawal poses no real threat to peace in our galaxy." He pointed at the floating display with 2 of his 4 hands. The display showed a map of space with different colored dots representing different fleets of ships. "Our intelligence services have been watching the humans very carefully. We know exactly what military power they have." The display zoomed in to show the human territory. It was a small cluster of star systems that looked tiny compared to the vast spaces controlled by other species. The entire Terran Defense Fleet consists of exactly 847 vessels of all types. This includes their largest battleships, their medium-sized cruisers, their small patrol ships, and even their cargo transports that have been modified with weapons. Many aliens in the audience leaned forward to get a better look at the numbers. Some were taking notes on their own devices. Others were quietly talking to the aliens sitting next to them. "Compare this to the hegemony military forces," Zixhal continued. The display changed to show a much larger area of space filled with thousands of red dots. "The hegemony maintains a total fleet of more than 12,000 active warships. This does not include their cargo ships, their civilian vessels, or their reserve fleets that could be activated in time of war." A Mindari representative, whose body looked like a shimmering cloud of blue and white light, spoke without moving what might have been a mouth. Her words appeared in everyone's mind like thoughts that were not their own. "The numerical advantage is clear, but what about the quality of their ships and weapons?" Zixhal smiled, showing teeth that were sharp and pointed. "An excellent question. Our analysis shows that human technology is approximately 200 years behind current galactic standards in most areas." The display now showed pictures of human spaceships next to ships from other species. The human ships looked blocky and simple compared to the sleek, curved designs of more advanced civilizations. Their largest ships are powered by fusion reactors, which most of us stopped using centuries ago. They still rely heavily on kinetic weapons, basically very fast bullets and missiles. "What about their nuclear weapons?" asked a Vorthan representative. Her crystal body was mostly green today, which meant she was curious but also slightly worried. "Primitive," Zixhal answered with a dismissive wave of one hand. "Nuclear weapons can certainly destroy cities and kill many people, but they are crude tools compared to our antimatter weapons or plasma cannons. The human's most powerful nuclear weapon could destroy perhaps one large city. A single antimatter torpedo from a modern hegemony ship could crack the crust of an entire planet." The audience made various sounds of agreement. Some aliens nodded their heads or whatever they use for heads. Others flashed colors or made clicking sounds that meant they understood and agreed. Veltar stepped forward again. "What about their defensive capabilities? Can their ships protect themselves against modern weapons?" "Their ships use energy shields, but they are very basic," Zixhal explained. "Our tests show that their strongest shields could be penetrated by any modern weapon system after only a few hits. Their armor is made of simple metal alloys instead of the advanced composite materials that we use." The holographic display showed a simulation of a battle between human ships and hegemony ships. The human vessels were colored blue and the hegemony ships were red. In the simulation, the red ships easily destroyed the blue ships with weapons that looked like bright beams of light. "How long would a war actually last?" asked an insect-like alien with compound eyes that reflected the lights like tiny mirrors. Zixhal thought for a moment, moving his 4 arms in a gesture that meant he was calculating. "Based on our analysis, if the hegemony decided to attack with full force, the war would be over in less than 3 months. If they chose to be more careful and minimize their own losses, perhaps 6 months at the most. But surely the humans know this?" said another representative. This one looked like a walking tree with bark for skin and leaves growing from his head. Why would they choose to fight a war they cannot possibly win? The Mindari representative answered this question. Humans are known to be very emotional beings. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logical thinking. They are probably hoping that other species will help them fight the hegemony. Veltar shook his head. No species will risk war with the hegemony to save the humans. The cost would be too high and the chance of success too small. The humans will be alone in this fight. What about their colonies? Asked the Vorthan. Will they evacuate their civilians before the fighting starts? Zixal looked at his notes. Strangely, our intelligence reports show no signs of large-scale evacuations. The humans seem to be continuing their normal activities. Their merchant ships are still carrying cargo between their worlds. Their civilians are still going to work and school as if nothing is happening. Perhaps they are in denial, suggested the tree-like alien. Sometimes when faced with a terrible situation, intelligent beings will refuse to accept reality. Or maybe they are planning something we do not know about, said the insect alien. His compound eyes seemed to shimmer with worry. Veltar made a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a squawk. What could they possibly be planning? We have watched them for decades. We know their technology, their ships, their weapons, their population, their industrial capacity. There are no secrets left to discover. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. The aliens discussed various scenarios and possibilities. They talked about what would happen to human territory after the war. They debated whether other species should offer to take in human refugees. Some suggested that parts of human space could be divided among the victor species as a reward for maintaining galactic peace. Through all of these discussions, one thing remained constant. Every alien in the room was completely certain that the humans would lose the coming war. The mathematics were too clear to argue with. The technology gap was too wide to bridge. The numbers were too overwhelming to overcome. As the meeting finally ended and the representatives began to leave, they felt confident that they had accurately assessed the situation. The humans were brave but foolish. They would learn a hard lesson about the realities of galactic politics. With luck, enough humans would survive to rebuild their civilization under the guidance of wiser, more experienced species. None of them wondered why the humans seemed so calm in the face of certain defeat. None of them questioned whether their intelligence about human capabilities might be incomplete. And none of them considered the possibility that a species capable of reaching the stars might have a few surprises left to reveal. The aliens went back to their ships and their worlds, secure in their knowledge and confident in their predictions. The humans, they believed, had made their choice and would soon face the consequences. It was unfortunate but inevitable. They could not have been more wrong. The Hegemony Command Center on Vex Prime was a massive building that looked like a giant beehive made of black metal. Inside, thousands of insect-like aliens worked at glowing screens and control panels. The air buzzed with the sound of their wings and the clicking of their mandibles as they communicated with each other in their native language. Supreme Commander Thekalar stood in the center of the command room on a raised platform. He was larger than the other Hegemony soldiers, with thick armor covering his segmented body and 4 powerful arms that ended in sharp claws. His compound eyes could see in many directions at once, allowing him to watch dozens of screens and displays at the same time. A smaller officer approached the platform and bowed low. This was Captain Zekmul, one of the Color's most trusted subordinates. "Supreme Commander," he said in their clicking language, "our scouts have returned with fresh intelligence about human fleet movements." The Color's mandibles moved in what passed for a smile among his species. "Report? The humans have moved their entire fleet to the Kepler 442 system," Zekmul said, consulting a glowing tablet in his hands. "All 847 vessels are now concentrated in one location. Our scouts counted them 3 times to be certain." "Excellent," the caller clicked. "They are making this even easier for us." Instead of having to hunt down their ships across multiple systems, they have gathered them all in one place like insects drawn to a light. He gestured with two of his arms toward the main tactical display. The enormous screen showed a three-dimensional map of the local area of space. The Kepler 442 system appeared as a small cluster of planets orbiting a yellow star. Tiny blue dots represented the human ships arranged in what looked like a defensive formation. "What is their positioning?" the caller asked. Captain Zekmel touched several buttons on his tablet and the display zoomed in closer. "This is the strange part, Supreme Commander. They are not positioned to defend the inhabited planets in the system. Instead, they are arranged near the asteroid belt, almost as if they are waiting for something." The caller's compound eyes focused on the display. In his many years of military experience, he had seen many different battle formations. Some were designed to protect important locations. Others were meant to control shipping routes or strategic positions. But the human formation made no tactical sense that he could understand. "Perhaps they plan to use the asteroids for cover," suggested another officer. "Or maybe they hope to lure our ships into the asteroid field where large vessels would have trouble maneuvering," added a third. The caller made a dismissive sound. "It does not matter what they are planning. We have overwhelming numerical superiority. Even if every human ship performed perfectly and every hegemony ship made mistakes, we would still achieve victory through pure numbers." He turned to address the entire command center. His voice was amplified so that every officer could hear him clearly. "Prepare the 3rd, 7th, and 9th fleets for immediate deployment. 3,000 ships should be more than sufficient to end this conflict quickly and decisively." The command center erupted into organized activity. Officers began sending orders to fleet commanders across hegemony space. Pilots ran to their ships. Engineers started final checks on weapons and engines. Within hours, the largest military force in hegemony history was preparing to move. Captain Zekmel approached his commander again. "Sir, our xenobiology experts have sent a report about human behavior patterns that they find ... concerning." "What kind of concerns?" the caller asked, though he did not seem particularly interested. "They note that human behavior since withdrawing from the peace talks has been remarkably calm and controlled. Most species facing overwhelming odds show signs of panic, desperation, or frantic activity. The humans are doing none of these things." Zekmel paused to check his notes. "There have been no desperate attempts at new diplomatic contact. No massive evacuation of civilian populations. No obvious preparations for guerrilla warfare. The humans seem to be conducting business as usual." "Fear affects different species in different ways," the caller replied with a wave of one claw. "Some species become frantic when faced with death. Others become very quiet and still. The humans are probably in shock from realizing how hopeless their situation is." "But sir," Zekmel persisted, "the xenobiology team also notes that humans have a well-documented history of fighting much larger enemies. Their own history shows many examples of smaller human armies defeating larger ones through superior tactics, better technology, or simple determination." The caller's mandibles clicked with annoyance. Their primitive history means nothing when facing modern galactic warfare, whatever small advantages they might have had against other humans on their home planet do not apply to space combat against a superior civilization. The conversation was interrupted by a junior officer who ran up to the platform. "Supreme Commander, the fleet's report ready for hyperspace jump. All ships are armed and supplied for extended combat operations." "Excellent," that caller said. "Give you the order. All fleets are to jump to Kepler 442 immediately. We will end this war in a single decisive battle." The command center fell silent except for the humming of machinery and the soft clicking of final preparations. On the main display, 3,000 red dots representing hegemony ships began moving toward the Kepler 442 system. The journey would take several hours, but once they arrived, the war would be over quickly. Hours later, the combined hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. The transition from faster-than-light travel to normal space always caused a brief period of disorientation, but the hegemony ships quickly formed into attack formations on the command ship. The Kaller studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The human fleet was exactly where their scouts had reported, arranged in a loose formation near the asteroid belt. They looked tiny compared to the massive hegemony armada that now filled a significant portion of the star system. "All ships report ready for combat," announced the tactical officer. "Weapons are charged and targeting systems are locked onto enemy vessels." "Sir," called out another officer, "the human ships are powering up their weapon systems. Energy signatures are unusual." The caller focused his compound eyes on the sensor readings. The human ships were indeed activating their weapons, but the energy patterns did not match anything in the hegemony database. "What type of weapons are they using?" "Unknown, sir." "The energy signatures do not match nuclear weapons, kinetic projectiles, or any known beam weapons. The computers cannot classify them." "It does not matter," the caller decided. "Whatever primitive weapons they have cannot possibly threaten our modern ships. All vessels prepare to attack." But instead of firing conventional weapons, the human ships did something completely unexpected. They began releasing what looked like clouds of glittering dust into space. Billions upon billions of tiny particles drifted away from each human vessel like sparkling snow in the light of the local star. "What are they doing?" asked Captain Zekmel. "Are they trying to create some kind of smokescreen?" The particles continued to spread outward in all directions. They moved slowly at first, but then seemed to accelerate as if they had tiny engines of their own. Within minutes, the glittering clouds were drifting toward the hegemony fleet like a beautiful but mysterious fog. "Raise defensive screens," the caller ordered. "Whatever those particles are, they will not penetrate our energy shields." But as the hegemony officers watched in growing confusion, the particles passed through their energy shields as if the shields did not exist at all. The glittering dust simply ignored the powerful force fields that should have stopped any known weapon and continued drifting toward the hulls of the hegemony ships. "Sir," shouted the tactical officer, "the particles are making contact with our forward ships." At first, nothing seemed to happen. The particles touched the hulls of the hegemony vessels and simply stuck there like ordinary dust. For a few seconds, the caller wondered if the humans had lost their minds and were attacking with actual space dust as some kind of desperate gesture. Then the screaming started, not from the crews of the ships. They were still alive and unharmed. The screaming came from the ships themselves. Metal began to groan and shriek as if it were in pain. Hull plates started to separate from each other. Entire sections of ships began to simply dissolve like sugar in hot water. Thekler watched in growing horror as the particles spread across the surface of the hegemony vessels. Wherever they touched, the molecular bonds that held the ships together simply stopped working. Metal separated into its basic elements. Complex machinery became clouds of individual atoms. Mighty dreadnoughts that had ruled the galaxy for centuries became expanding spheres of their constituent materials. "What is happening?" Thekler demanded. "What are those particles doing to our ships?" But no one could answer him. The hegemony officers watched helplessly as their most powerful weapons of war were reduced to glittering clouds of free-floating atoms. Ship after ship simply came apart at the molecular level, their crews dying instantly as their vessels ceased to exist around them. In exactly 17 minutes. 3,000 hegemony warships had become nothing more than stellar dust drifting through the vacuum of space. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's long history. Representatives who had been confident and dismissive just weeks before now sat in their seats with expressions of shock and terror. The great assembly hall that had once echoed with calm debates now buzzed with panicked whispers and fearful conversations. Prime Mediator Veltar stood at the central podium, but his usual composed manner was completely gone. His feathers were ruffled and disheveled. His clawed hands shook as he tried to operate the holographic display controls. When he spoke, his voice cracked with barely controlled fear. Fellow representatives, he began, then stopped to clear his throat. We are here to discuss the situation involving humanity and the recent destruction of hegemony forces. The massive holographic display above the assembly showed something that no one had thought possible just days before. Where the Kepler 442 system had once contained 3,000 powerful hegemony warships, there was now only empty space filled with clouds of glittering particles that had once been the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. How many ships? Asked a Vorthan representative. Her crystal body had turned completely gray, which was the color her species showed when they were terrified. Defense Coordinator Zixhal stepped forward to answer. His forearms moved nervously as he consulted his reports. All of his earlier confidence was gone, replaced by the look of someone who had discovered that everything he thought he knew was wrong. 3,000 ships, he said in a voice that was barely above a whisper. The entire 3rd, 7th, and 9th fleets of the hegemony military, all destroyed in 17 minutes. A sound like wind through dead leaves swept through the assembly, as hundreds of aliens made noises of shock and disbelief. Some species clicked their mandibles. Others changed colors rapidly. A few made high-pitched whistling sounds that indicated extreme distress. But how? Demanded Kexthal, the Zephyrian representative. His scales were shifting between purple and black so quickly that they looked like they were vibrating. Our intelligence said that human weapons were centuries behind our technology. Nuclear weapons cannot destroy entire fleets in minutes. They did not use nuclear weapons, Zixhal replied. They did not use any weapons that we recognize or understand. Our sensors recorded the entire battle, but our scientists cannot explain what we observed. The holographic display changed to show a recording of the battle. The assembled representatives watched as the human ships released clouds of what looked like sparkling dust. They saw the particles drift toward the hegemony fleet and pass through energy shields as if those shields did not exist. Then they watched in horror as the mighty warships simply came apart like toys made of sand. What are those particles? Asked the Mindari representative. Her mental voice in everyone's mind sounded strained and frightened. Dr. Cathara, the Council's chief scientist and expert on different alien species, stepped forward. She was a reptilian being with scales that had turned pale green with fear. In her hands she carried several data tablets filled with research and analysis. We have been studying the recordings and the aftermath of the battle, she said. We have also been reviewing all of our historical data about humanity. What we have discovered is disturbing. She activated her own section of the holographic display. It showed a timeline of human development from their earliest recorded history to the present day. We made a critical error in our assessment of human capabilities. We assumed that their technological development followed the same patterns as other known species. It does not. The display showed humanity's remarkably rapid advancement from simple farming to space travel in what was, by galactic standards, an impossibly short time. But more troubling were certain periods in their recent history where their development seemed to slow down, or even stop advancing in certain areas. For the past 200 years, Dr. Cathara continued, human technological advancement has been deliberately hidden from outside observation. The ships we cataloged, the weapons we assessed, the industrial capabilities we measured, none of them represent their true capabilities. She pointed to specific sections of the timeline. The ships that visit our worlds and trade with our merchants are not their best ships. They are decoys, designed to make us underestimate their real military power. The weapons we observed in their conflicts with pirates and raiders are not their most advanced weapons. They have been putting on a performance for our benefit. The assembly hall erupted in confused voices. Representatives called out questions and objections all at the same time. Veltar had to use the amplification system to restore order. But why would they hide their true strength? Shouted an insect-like representative from the back of the hall. What advantage would that give them? Dr. Cathara consulted her notes before answering. Based on our analysis of human psychology, and behavior patterns, we believe they genuinely preferred peaceful solutions to conflicts. By appearing less technologically advanced than they actually were, they hoped to be seen as equals rather than threats. The particles they used against the hegemony fleet, she continued, appear to be some form of molecular disassembler technology. These devices can break apart the atomic bonds that hold matter together, essentially converting complex structures back into their basic elements. The implications of this statement hit the assembly like a physical blow. Several representatives made sounds of distress. Others began talking rapidly to their aides or into communication devices. Molecular disassemblers, Dr. Cathara explained, require an understanding of quantum mechanics and atomic theory that is far beyond our current scientific knowledge. The humans are not behind us technologically, they are ahead of us. Significantly ahead of us. How far ahead? Asked Valtar. We estimate at least 500 years beyond our most advanced species, Dr. Cathara replied. Possibly more. The precision required to create disassemblers that can differentiate between different types of matter that can be programmed to ignore certain materials while destroying others that can operate in the vacuum of space. We cannot even begin to understand how such technology works. The Mindari representative's mental voice reached everyone in the hall. If they have possessed such advanced technology for centuries, why did they not use it before? Why did they allow conflicts like the Hegemony War to continue for 3 years? Because, Dr. Cathara said quietly, they were hoping for a peaceful solution. They came to our peace talks genuinely seeking justice through diplomatic means. They revealed only enough of their capabilities to be taken seriously while keeping their true strength hidden. She paused to let this sink in. When we dismissed their claims and minimized their losses, when we suggested they should accept the hegemony's terms despite the genocide of their people, we forced them to abandon diplomacy. The hegemony destruction was not just a military victory, she continued. It was a demonstration. A message to the galaxy about what happens when peaceful solutions are rejected. Veltar found his voice again. What What has happened to the rest of the hegemony, their other fleets? Their worlds? Zixhal operated the display controls with shaking hands. The view expanded to show hegemony territory, or what had been hegemony territory. Where once there had been hundreds of star systems with massive populations and powerful military installations, now there was nothing. Gone. Zixhal whispered, all of it. Every ship, every space station, every military base, every weapons factory. The humans did not invade hegemony worlds or occupy their territory. They simply erased every trace of hegemony military power from existence. The civilian populations? Asked someone from the crowd, unharmed, Zixhal replied. The humans were precise. They destroyed only military targets and infrastructure that could be used to make war. The hegemony people are alive, but their entire military and government structure has been eliminated. How long did this take? 4 months, came the answer. 4 months to completely dismantle a civilization that had existed for over 1,000 years and controlled 400 star systems. The assembly hall fell into stunned silence. The implications were clear and terrifying. The humans had possessed the ability to destroy any civilization in the galaxy for centuries. They had chosen not to use this power, preferring to work within the existing galactic community as apparent equals, but when pushed too far, when their attempts at peaceful resolution were rejected and their people's suffering was dismissed as unimportant, they had revealed the truth. They were not equals in the galactic community. They were the apex predators who had been choosing to hide their claws. What do we do now? Asked a representative in a small, frightened voice. No one had an answer. The galaxy had just learned that everything they thought they knew about the balance of power was completely wrong. And somewhere out there, the humans were waiting to see how the rest of the galaxy would respond to this revelation. The emergency broadcast from the Galactic Council reached every inhabited world in the galaxy at the same time. On thousands of planets, billions of beings stopped what they were doing to watch their communication screens. The message was being transmitted in every known language and communication method. Prime Mediator Veltar appeared on screens across the galaxy. His appearance had changed dramatically since the failed peace talks. His feathers looked dull and gray. His eyes showed the deep tiredness of someone who had not slept well in many days. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made every listener pay attention. "Citizens of the galactic community," he began slowly, "we must address the situation involving humanity and the recent events in former hegemony territory." Behind him, a massive holographic display showed what had once been the hegemony's vast empire. The 400 star systems that had been controlled by the insect-like species for over 1,000 years were still there, but they looked completely different now. Where there had once been massive space stations, military bases, and fleets of warships, there was now empty space. "As many of you have heard through unofficial channels," Veltar continued, "the hegemony military forces have been completely destroyed. This includes every warship, every space station, every weapons factory, and every government installation across their entire territory." The display changed to show specific examples. Massive orbital shipyards that had built thousands of warships over the centuries were simply gone. Military academies where hegemony officers had trained for generations had vanished without a trace. Even the great capital world's defensive satellites had been removed from existence. "The destruction was precise and complete," Veltar explained. "No civilian populations were harmed. No homes were destroyed. No schools, hospitals, or farms were damaged. The humans targeted only military assets and government infrastructure." A new image appeared showing former hegemony worlds as they existed now. The planets themselves were unchanged, but they looked strangely naked without the rings of orbital defenses and space stations that had surrounded them for centuries. How was this accomplished? Veltar asked the question that every viewer was thinking. "Our investigation has revealed that we have been fundamentally wrong about human technological capabilities for the past 200 years. The display now showed a comparison between what the galactic community had believed about human technology and what they now knew to be true. The difference was shocking. While the aliens had thought humans were centuries behind galactic standards, the truth was that humanity was centuries ahead of everyone else. The weapons they used against the hegemony, Veltar said with obvious difficulty, are called molecular disassemblers. These devices can break apart the atomic bonds that hold matter together, essentially converting any object back into its basic elements. This technology requires scientific knowledge that is far beyond our current understanding." He paused to let this information sink in. Across the galaxy, beings who had considered humans to be useful but primitive allies were now realizing they had been living alongside the most advanced civilization in known space. "The humans have possessed this level of technology for at least 2 centuries, Veltar continued. "During this time, they chose to hide their true capabilities from the rest of the galactic community. They participated in trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange while pretending to be our technological equals." The display showed examples of human ships that regularly visited alien worlds. These vessels, which had seemed reasonably advanced but not remarkable, were now revealed to be deliberate deceptions. The real human technology was so far beyond galactic understanding that most species would not have been able to recognize it even if they saw it. "Why did they hide their strength?" Veltar asked. "Our analysis of human behavior and psychology suggests they genuinely preferred peaceful solutions to conflicts. By appearing less advanced than they were, they hoped to be treated as equals rather than feared as a threat." The implications of this statement were staggering. Every alien watching the broadcast was forced to reconsider every interaction they had ever had with humans. Had the humans been humoring them all along? Had they been playing the role of junior partners in the galactic community while actually being capable of dominating everyone? "The peace talks regarding the hegemony conflict," Veltar said, his voice becoming even more strained, were humanity's final attempt to resolve the situation through diplomatic means. They came to us seeking justice for the genocide of their people and the destruction of their worlds. The display showed recordings from the peace talks. Ambassador Sarah Chun could be seen presenting evidence of hegemony war crimes, making logical arguments for territorial claims, and requesting reasonable compensation for damages. The alien representatives could be seen dismissing these claims and suggesting that humans should accept whatever terms the hegemony offered. We failed them, Veltar admitted. We treated their legitimate grievances as emotional outbursts. We minimized their losses and dismissed their evidence. We told them to be reasonable while ignoring the unreasonable acts committed against them. The broadcast then showed something that chilled every viewer to their core. It was a recording of the final moments of the peace talks, when Ambassador Chun had said those now prophetic words, "We will handle this matter ourselves." When humanity withdrew from peace talks, Veltar explained, they were not abandoning diplomacy out of anger or frustration. They were giving us a final warning. They were telling us that they had tried to solve this problem peacefully, but since we would not help them achieve justice, they would achieve it themselves. The display now showed the complete timeline of the hegemony's destruction. It had taken exactly 4 months for the humans to systematically eliminate every trace of hegemony military power across 400 star systems. They had done this without setting foot on a single world, without engaging in traditional space battles, and without causing any civilian casualties. The technology they revealed, Veltar said, represents only a small fraction of their true capabilities. Our scientists estimate that humanity is at least 500 years ahead of our most advanced species in terms of technological development, possibly much more. This revelation sent shock waves through the galactic community. Species that had considered themselves the height of civilization were now forced to accept that they were primitive compared to the humans they had thought of as their junior partners. But perhaps the most important thing we have learned, Veltar continued, is what the humans did after demonstrating their power. They did not conquer former hegemony territory. They did not demand tribute from other species. They did not use their revealed strength to dominate the galaxy. The display showed recent observations of human activity. Their merchant ships were still carrying cargo to alien worlds. Their diplomats were still participating in cultural exchanges. Their scientists were still sharing non-military research with other species. In short, they were behaving exactly as they had before, as if nothing had changed. The humans have returned to their previous behavior, Veltar explained. They continue to participate in trade and diplomacy as if they are equals rather than our superiors. They have not demanded special treatment or recognition of their true status. This was perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the entire situation. The humans had revealed that they could destroy any civilization in the galaxy, then simply went back to pretending they were no more advanced than anyone else. On behalf of the Galactic Council, Veltar said, his voice heavy with shame, I formally apologize to humanity for our failure to recognize the justice of their cause. We failed in our duty as mediators and peacemakers. We allowed our prejudices and assumptions to cloud our judgment. The broadcast then showed a message that appeared on every screen in the galaxy. The Galactic Council requests that humanity respond regarding the future of galactic relations. But as days passed after the broadcast, the humans did not respond. They simply continued their normal activities. Their ships continued to trade with alien worlds. Their diplomats continued to attend cultural events. Their scientists continued to participate in research exchanges. The silence was more powerful than any words could have been. The humans had made their point. They had shown what happened when peaceful solutions were rejected and justice was denied. Now they were waiting to see if the galaxy had learned the lesson. Across thousands of worlds, billions of beings were forced to confront a new reality. The species they had dismissed as emotional and primitive were actually the most advanced civilization in known space. They had been living among apex predators who had chosen to hide their claws. The galaxy would never feel safe again. But perhaps that was the point. The humans had taught everyone a valuable lesson about the importance of justice, the consequences of dismissing the legitimate grievances of others, and the terrible price of forcing peaceful beings to abandon diplomacy. The age of human deception was over, the age of galactic understanding had begun.